for me on my return. The same thing happened the few times I traveled outside Ghana. There was never an occasion when I landed at Kodoka International Airport from wherever, and I did not find at least a driver waiting to pick me home. And when I got home, I will find the whole house in a welcome mood for my return. Why? Because I would have told them when I will be returning and by which flight. And so members of my family and my staff were always expecting me on the due date. There was not once I gave my household and staff my return flight details, and they entertained any doubts as to whether I will return or not. There was once when the Ghana Airways flight to bring me down from Heathrow Airport was more than 6 hours late, and even then, a colleague from the office was on hand to pick me home from the airport. Now, yesterday was the celebration of the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ from the dead. On at least 3 occasions, Jesus had informed his disciples that he was going to be crucified, but he will rise again on the 3rd day. He had told them, "We are going to Jerusalem, they are going to arrest me and crucify me. But don't worry, on the 3rd day, I would rise again from the dead." They had come to Jerusalem, as he said. He had been arrested, as he said, and he had been crucified, as he said. What was left to happen was he rising from the dead on the 3rd day. And when it happened, there was no one there. In fact, instead of spending the day after the crucifixion in excited anticipation of the resurrection, the disciples spent it in mourning. The women spent the time preparing spices so they could go to the tomb after the Sabbath to bury him well, because the advent of the Sabbath the previous day had forced them to bury the body in a great hurry, and so they did not think that they had used enough spices for the corpse. On the morning of the resurrection, we find the women making their way to the tomb, but it was not to witness the resurrection. They were carrying the spices they had prepared to complete the burial process. I find the fact that none of the disciples was expecting the resurrection very humbling for me as a believer. These were disciples who had experienced Jesus and his awesome power firsthand. They testified that he was the Son of the living God. They were there when he turned water into wine. They were there when he fed the 5,000 with the boys' 5 pieces of bread and 2 fish. They were there when he healed the sick and cast out demons. They were there when he commanded Lazarus back to life after he had been buried for 4 days. They heard his incredible and powerful sermons and teachings. They experienced Jesus stilling the storm at sea with just a word. They knew Jesus, they experienced Jesus, and they left their work and their families to follow him. And yet, they were not there when the resurrection he told them about happened. Indeed, when the angel spoke to the women who arrived at the tomb with the spices after the resurrection had happened, he said to them, "He is not here, he has risen, just as he said." We put a limit on our faith and what we are willing to believe as possible. We saw that in the case of Lazarus. When Lazarus took ill, his sisters, Martha and Mary, were willing to believe that Jesus could heal him. But when he died, they gave up hope and faith. That was the limit of their faith and their hope. And when Jesus turned up later, they told him, "Master, if you had been here, our brother would not have died." The disciples were with Jesus and saw him command Lazarus back to life. And I'm sure it increased their faith in their master, but it was faith in their master. In other words, they were willing to believe that Jesus could bring back anyone from the dead because they have seen him do it. But a dead Jesus coming back to life, that to their mind was impossible. And that is what I find humbling about the Easter story. Even those of us who claim to have faith have limits on our faith. We tend to limit God. we decide in our minds what God can and cannot do. Take the current situation in Ghana as an example. Many of us are prepared to believe that God could have turned our situation around some years ago. But right now, with all the problems and uncertainties, many are beginning to discard their faith and are giving up on Ghana and any possible divine intervention in Ghana. Even believers are saying Ghana is finished, that Ghana is too messed up for God to do anything about it. The Easter story, and in particular the resurrection, is a reminder to all of us never to set any limit on God. It is a reminder to all of us never to say that it is too late or too far gone for God to do anything about it. The resurrection is a reminder to all of us to never give up hope and to keep hope alive, because hope comes from God and God always comes through. May you experience something of the resurrection in your life and in your affairs in the coming days. And may God resurrect Ghana and resurrect the aspirations and hopes of all Ghanaians who love Ghana. And gorgeous, that is my presentation for this one.
Thank you, Uncle. Don't set any limits on God.
No, we do that a lot.
Yeah.
We decide what God can do and cannot do, and we see that with the disciples. They were not there. Mama, if you traveled and you told the family when you're coming back, you get home and you see evidence that they're expecting you back. You know, this one, he told them 3 times. No one was there. The women who arrived, they had spices. They were going to bury the body better.
Uncle.
Maybe what? I'm looking at this color combination. Is this phobia or what?
This is phobia. Phobia. It's a phobia Monday. Uncle, thank you so much.
Now I understand why you are a phobian. Because the phobia colors suit you very well.
Woo! Thank you, Uncle. Uncle, thank you so much for food for thoughts. I'll laugh to Auntie Florence.
All right, okay, I'll tell her.
Enjoy the last holiday.
Okay, all right then. Bye.
All right, bye. That's Uncle Whyte with Food for Thoughts. It's brought to us always by Riverman Productions. Be the difference. So this is the Easter Monday edition. Uncle is back on Thursday, God willing, for another Food for Thoughts. But our social media messages here on the Super Morning Show brought to us by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, Ghana AIDS Commission. Test to know your HIV status and take steps to